Hello, everyone. The broadcast will begin in about 5 minutes, and so we are in an in-listen mode only, but if you do have any questions, just go ahead and start typing them into the question box. And with that, we'll be back with you in just a couple of more minutes, so stand by.
Yeah, kind of get a weight off into it.
Well, welcome, everyone. It looks like it is the top of the hour, and we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm hoping that you can hear us. We've tested our mics prior to starting, and we think that we have good communication. Please let us know if that's not. And so with that, my name is James Fountain. I'm the Executive Director with the Institute for Competency-Based Education here at Texas A&M Commerce. With us is Carlos Rivers with the Institute and Courtney Clinton. And so we are looking forward to our spring webinar series. And so with that, we want to say welcome everyone to the 2020 ICDE third annual spring webinar series. And on behalf of us at the Institute, we welcome you and are very excited about our annual series this year. Today, we will hear from Dr. Villanueva-Russell, the Dean of the College of Innovation and Design, and Jimmy Womack, the CJCDE Program Coordinator and Lead Instructor. Today's webinar, From Zero to Launch in 11 Months, Learning In and Learning Out Strategies for Success, is an overview of the second successful CDE program on our TA and UC campus. If you have any questions or comments that you would like to make throughout the presentation, we ask that you please put those into the questions or the comment box, and all of those questions will be answered at the end of the webinar. Carlos Rivers will be our IT behind-the-scenes question and IT guru, and we thank him for his extra support. So without further ado, Jimmy and Dr. VR, welcome, and the show is all yours.
Hello, everybody. I am Jimmy, And I have Dr. VR with me here today too.
Hello.
Just to tell you a little bit about the college. What? Oh, I'm sorry. She's keeping me straight. Just to tell you a little bit about the college. We were founded in 1889. We are a public institution, 4-year regionally comprehensive programs with about 12,000 students, 90% coursework, 50% Pell eligible, and first year generations is what makes up the entire university. And if you've never seen our university, you really owe it to yourself to pay us a visit. We're a lot more than what a lot of people think. So to get into the Bachelor's of Science in Criminal Justice, this is a competency-based, and you may hear me back and forth throughout the program calling it CBE, because I just get lazy with that. So if you hear CBE, just know it's competency-based education. And it's an online program for first responders, law enforcement, peace officers, and adult learners with criminal justice or related public service employment experiences. We started this program almost a year ago in March of 2019. And we've had some pretty rapid growth throughout the term. We'll talk about that in a minute with Dr. VR. But some of the program highlights is we have 6 terms a year. Each term is 7 weeks long, and their terms are $750 per term, and all material is built into that. So there's no additional cost related to books or anything in the program. And we also have peace officer rate reductions. So for those that are active full-time police officers, there's a educational bill and a House bill that allows for rate reductions. And the way that the college applies that is it's a $300 rate reduction per term. So it goes from $750 per term to $450 per term. And again, it's per term, not per class, is how that works. And it's 100% online, and it's all the courses are offered in that CBE competency-based format. And the program is accelerated and self-paced course. So throughout the term, you progress through the term at your own rate. So we tried to limit any kind of limitations placed on the student that will allow them to progress at their own rate. So there's no requirements for weekly discussions, any of those things. So you could literally sign up for a class, and if you show competency through the class, you can complete the class in a week or 2, and sometimes less. But if you need additional work or time for that material, for that particular course, you're allowed the entire 7 weeks to complete the program or complete the class. We allow, or the college allows, up to 84 semester hours to transfer in, and we allow 30 hours of college credit for TCO. And TCO stands for Texas Commission on Law Enforcement Education. So for Texas peace officers who have a commission with the state, you can receive up to 30 hours. And I want to make a note of that is it's up to 30 hours. It's not 30 hours necessarily. So it depends on what you bring to the table, depending on what your prior educational experiences are. If you've had these other classes in the past, then we can't double dip it, obviously. So if you've taken 9 hours of those criminal justice classes, we could still allow 21 hours or vice versa. If you've taken 21 hours, then we could still award up to 9. But it is up to 30 hours, not necessarily just 30 hours. The programs, you may have to help me with this slide. I don't remember this one.
Yeah, I think on this slide, we're just kind of going to give some context and some background on why this program came about. So Jimmy, who's a practitioner, can talk about the need for this for law enforcement and how it can help their career trajectories.
Okay, so thank you for the boost. We make a good team. So this program is a lot different than a lot of the other criminal justice programs out there that are based in research and theories. A lot of the application of this program is for the practitioner. So For officers who want to improve their skill sets, write better offense reports, view the criminal justice system from a totally different lens, this is the type of program that will allow them to do so while still staying in their wheelhouse. This also allows officers to get a pertinent accredited degree from the A&M system that will allow them to promote within their agencies and or apply for different promotional positions with other agencies. So as most of you know who are in policing has changed drastically over the last 30 years. And the agencies have changed a lot with that. So a lot of agencies, and I can use Fort Worth for an example, if you want to reach a certain level within the agency, then it requires a degree. And if you want to reach even higher aspirations, maybe a captain, administrative positions, then it could require a graduate degree as well. And a lot of agencies are moving that way. And this is an opportunity for us to kind of get ahead of that curve from both a practicing standpoint and an academic standpoint. And by far, I would consider myself a practicing academic. And that when we created these programs, we created them with the practitioner in mind. We didn't just take a traditional criminal justice course and morph it over into a CBE program, right? We created a course with Dr. VR's lead. We created a program from the ground up to support what the profession needs. So when we created it with an advisory board of nothing but criminal justice professionals, so what is it that you want your people to know when they complete a degree? And when you look at our list of classes, that's the list they come up with. It's been morphed around, and some of the ideas have been added to certain classes together, or whatever it took for us to create it. But it was based on the needs assessment, and which is what is so attractive to me for this program. Is it is meant to better the profession, and that's the driving force with it, and that's the benefit of it.
So that's Jimmy, who's a practitioner, 20 plus years in law enforcement, who's kind of has a foot over in the academic side.
Yeah. One foot.
I viewed the creation of this program purely from the perspective of an administrator. So I don't have any law enforcement background. My academic background is in sociology and not criminal justice. So I was really bringing an outside of the box and outsider's perspective to this program. And for me as an administrator, I saw this as an enrollment initiative. This was a niche of people that we were not tapping into. Building a new program, I wanted to make sure that I did not duplicate what was already in existence. So we already have a very large traditional face-to-face brick and mortar criminal justice program that is geared towards those that want the theory and the research and want that traditional academic approach. What I wanted to make sure to create was a unique program that was sort of industry leaning, and that was going to be needed for people with actual work experience. So I made sure that our courses were not going to steal from our existing program. I also knew that I wanted to bridge with existing pathways that were out there. Assuming that many of our students were going to come in with community college credits, I wanted to make sure not to duplicate what was already being offered at the community college as well. So I intentionally did not recreate the lower level criminal justice or the field of study courses that are offered at community colleges. I wanted to make sure that our colleagues in the community college world could maintain their pathways and could maintain their market share offering these courses to their students. So I made sure to just sort of work around the barriers and create a program that would build and supplement what already was in existence. So that's an administrator's perspective of how this program came about. So if we give you an overview of this 11-month from pregnancy to birth, I guess maybe it's like giving birth to an elephant. I guess their gestation's 11 months. I came on board this project in April of 2018. The university had received a TAB grant from the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, and it had sort of stalled out. It was with the traditional criminal justice program, and they very much just wanted to replicate their existing program. That came to me in April of 2018, in which the dean at the time was like, please take this program, do something with it, and make it go. So by June of that same year, we had an advisory board meeting. We were starting to reverse engineer. We had spoken with law enforcement professionals, and they had told us what the gaps are between people that are coming from the community college or people with TCOL certification and what they wanted to see in the next level up in their employees. By January of 2019, we had unofficially launched the program, but we didn't have a lot of enrollment, and we found that we really needed to address TCOL credits. And so Jimmy and the co-PI on the grant, Louis Lufkin, came to me and said, can we accept TCOL credits? And my administrator side was like, absolutely not. That's non-credit. We can't give college credit for that, for something that wasn't learned in college. And they were like, but isn't competency-based education about giving credit for what people already know? And I was like, well, of course it is. And so we took the steps around October of 2018, to do a curriculum crosswalk and accept TCOL credits, giving them transcripted course credit for 30 semester hours, which is a fourth of their college degree. And once we got that in place, everything opened up. Enrollments increased exponentially. And by March 2019, we officially launched. So if we look at our actual program and who is enrolled in it, you'll see that the majority of students, and this is law enforcement, so this should not be shocking, but the majority of our students, by far, 81% are male, 69% of them are white, and interestingly enough, the average age of the student in the TAB CJ program is 37. So if we're looking at 60 by 30 goals, which is another sort of administrator priority that I'm looking at, this is exactly the target range that we want to see. We want to get to those people that are not necessarily getting a college degree. We're reaching to new populations. In terms of the students launched from May Mini now until fall, our conversion rates are excellent. And really, I have to give my hats off to Jimmy. Jimmy gives personalized service. If you were to be sitting here in the room with Jimmy and I right now, what you're not hearing is Jimmy's phone going off every 5 seconds with someone who is calling interested in this program. I don't know how Jimmy sleeps at night, because I think probably at 2 a.m. you're getting texts. You're getting.
I mute it now.
Oh, you mute it
Yeah.
now. But literally from day one, people, I mean, they call out of the woodwork. And because of Jimmy's attention, 50 out of 61 students that are accepted into the program are actually enrolled. So our conversion rate is excellent because we had this sort of embedded success model in which an advisor and Jimmy, who's part recruiter, who's part instructor, who's part coordinator, is really working in earnest to make sure that our students know what courses are going to transfer, they know how to register, they know how to get involved in the program. So we're very proud of our enrollment and conversion rates. Oops, I'm going to try and get to the next slide. Okay. When we look at our actual enrollment growth, we launched in March of 2019 with 6 students. Had a little bit of slow going, but by the summer we were taking off. We are just about at the year mark, but within 9 months, we have 100 plus students enrolled in our program. Our first graduates of the program graduated in December. We had 4 students that graduated the program, which means that they finished their bachelor's degree in 9 months, which is a huge accomplishment. That's the next slide, please. Okay. Our retention rates and our completion rates are also on point as well. You can see that 92% of our students from the previous semester are returning for the next semester, and students on average are completing 9 semester hours per term, which is 3 courses. Our record is what, 8 students?
8 hours, 8 classes.
8 classes completed in 1 7-week term. And that student would have completed more, we just didn't have the classes built out at the time. So the notion of the competency-based program combined with the self-paced and acceleration version means that students are really showing mastery and able to move on to new territory, which is challenging to them. So how do we do this? How do you create one of these programs? Because it seems easy in retrospect to say, well, 11 months ago, we launched this program and now we have 100 students. But those months leading up to that launch were very intensive. And for me, jumping in as an administrator, I really just leaned in and duplicated some of the existing resources that were already built into the program. So you know by now that we have 2 competency-based programs. Our first one was a BAAS in organizational leadership. That one was launched by breaking every single rule in the university, from business model to term length to tuition to billing to financial aid. All of that had to be built manually, and luckily that model already existed. So when I came along, I said, I just want to duplicate that. I want to use the very same financial aid structure. I want to use the very same business model. I wasn't going to change a thing. And luckily, all of that heavy lifting had been done. Even though that had already been created, it still took a lot of meetings with key people that are behind the scenes. So if you come from the world of faculty like I did, you have no idea who these people are. You just don't know what you don't know. And so you're happy to speak with James or Carlos or myself, and we can create a list of essential people that need to be in the very first meeting. Everyone from financial aid to the bursar to admissions to people who are going to code this into the SIS system. I don't even know what that means. I just know that these people have to have access to those kind of acronyms so that we can log and we can trace and we can bill and we can retain and that we can do everything that's necessary, because again, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that it took numerous meetings of me, people going to people saying, this is crazy, we've never done this before, but can we accept TCOL credits? Can we build a program without textbooks? Can we have somebody in admissions that can understand ACE and military transcripts? None of this stuff has ever been done before. So you just have to be that weirdo that comes in and says, I'm sorry, I have a really weird idea. Can you help me do this thing that no one's ever done before? What do you want to add, Jimmy, about the early stages of building the program?
Well, thank goodness that you did all that. I don't even know what some of those people are either. But just from the application of the program, just the number growth when college tuition just generically nationally has decreased, for us to have such number growth speaks volumes for what the program is and what Dr. VR created. And that is exciting to me, just from a practicing standpoint, is because it has such an impact on the people doing the job day to day, and allows them flexibility regardless of whether they're on night shifts, 12-hour shifts, going to court, on call, whatever it is. It gives them the opportunity to be able to get a degree where they would otherwise never be able to. And with policing going the way it's going, with the mandates of being able, or to be able to promote to a particular position, to have a degree, allowing this type of program to exist, really is going to impact their lives. And we're not talking about just putting some bars or stars on some shoulders. We're talking about the quality of life for them and their family, and even into retirement. So obviously the higher they go, the more money they can make and the more money they invest into their retirement. So this is really a life-changing thing. This is not just another program in my eyes. This is not just another degree. This is impacting people's lives in a positive manner. And in my policing experience, and I may go a little stray on this one, and so Dr. VR will hit me again. But when I look back at my career, when I got into policing, I wanted to make a difference. And then when I got into policing, I realized that the difference that needed to be made was in policing. And so I started up the promotional path. I became a field training officer, became a corporal, sergeant, a lieutenant, captain, assistant chief, and eventually a chief. But each one of them had limitations. And I could only impact either a particular person, a particular shift, or a particular division, or even a particular department. But in this profession now, and being able to interact with law enforcement agencies across the entire state, and impacting individuals within those departments, this is a program, in my eyes, again, that impacts a profession on a state level. And that to me is so motivating and so encouraging that, I mean, if I could afford it, I'd do it for free. But I enjoy doing what I do. You didn't hear that. But I enjoy doing what I do, and I hope to make this program known. I think the only reason we're only at 100 people at this point in the program is because 200 people don't know of it. But as soon as they hear of it, I think they will definitely be interested and be part of it. So that's my lean in.
So at some point, I had used up all possible resources I could in-house to build this program, and I needed some help outside as well. And so if you're going to try and replicate or duplicate or create a competency-based program from scratch, know that there are experts out there that are willing and more than willing to help you out. So the Institute for Competency-Based Education, James Fountain and Carlos Rivers have been there for all sorts of things, from market analysis to insights on marketing to best practices in course development, to assisting with my advisory board, to providing resources to send me to a conference just for professional development to learn about competency-based education. They have been there all the time because they've been doing this a long time and they do it very well. We also contracted with Kurt Lindberg at Hasted Consulting, and he was phenomenal in terms of building. We considered doing a prior learning PLA. Assessment, thank you. PLA assessment, portfolio assessment for people that could come in and demonstrate they had mastery of these lower level criminal justice courses. We hired Kurt to create the rubric, to create the financial model for that, to vet faculty on how to train them to use that. Interestingly enough, we found that that was a wonderful system that no student wanted to take us up on because it was too labor intensive and too expensive. And so that actually became a barrier for us. We also found out that PLA was going to impact our Title IV, our financial aid eligibility, because that was going to lapse us over into direct assessment, and we would need Department of Education approval. So we sort of went down a rabbit hole with that one, thinking that's going to be a great pathway that no one's ever found out about. And then we discovered there's a reason why people aren't using that pathway, is because it has all sorts of ramifications for people I didn't have at the table. And that's why leaning out is important, because it brings in other perspectives of people to make you pay attention to things that you weren't aware of. So when I created this program, we had an interim dean, an interim department head in place, and really sort of no one over the program. Most people would find that very intimidating. I found that to be the perfect playground for me to do things without anyone watching. So I just took advantage of the fact that there was not permanent leadership at the time. I think we had an interim president at the time as well, maybe even an interim provost. I mean, there was no one sort of in the hen house. And so I just came in wolf-like and just kind of designed things. And it gave me, because I was also an outsider, it gave me the ability to kind of bring people in that normally would not be at the table and do something that was really, truly innovative. But at some point I knew I was going to have to turn this over to somebody, because I can't run a criminal justice program. I am not SAC COC approved to be teaching these courses. And so we were really in search of a unicorn. We needed somebody that could bridge theory and practice in criminal justice. And luckily we found Jimmy, who is the perfect person. He has a master's degree. He has 2 degrees, at least, from this institution, has 20 years in law enforcement, and so can talk the talk and walk the walk, can be one among cops and be respected, but also be an academic and hold his own. And so luckily we found Jimmy, who's been the perfect complement to really bring this program out to the public. What else do you want to add about leaning out? Other people we relied on?
Well, inside in the program, as it grew, having the staff and faculty to be able to keep up with the numbers. So there's a whole host of academic advisors, program directors that have played key roles in when I came on board. Again, as Dr. VR said earlier, I kind of had 1 foot in academia, but there's a lot of inner workings that I was not familiar with. And we had Christina Nichols, who's one of the academic advisors for the traditional criminal justice program. She was a wealth of knowledge. And then Misty Lair, who's a director of other programs on campus, who is able to help with degree plans and pathways and those kind of things. And it's so encouraging to have such a supportive staff and people that are willing to step outside of their comfort zone, because when CBE came about, even these people in academia who have spent their life here were not familiar with what CBE is or was and what it should be. And we were all able to kind of come together and learn it together. And as Dr. VR said, there was some do's and don'ts that we figured out along the way, and how we applied those TCO credits and what courses that we wanted to play a part into the criminal justice program, because originally it didn't include the core courses, but being able to partner with other CBE programs on campus, we were able to join forces and create an entire 4-year program. And then on leaning outside the campus is departmental contacts. So interacting with our advisory board, letting them know where we are, trying to keep our finger on the pulse of policing as to if there's any changes that need to be made in our curriculum. Is there more classes that need to be developed? Is there more track specific programs that we could create? But it's leaning out is not a one-time lean, right? We are leaning out. So that's definitely a verb, and we continue that process, hopefully to stay on top of what has already been created and to only make it better from here out. So that's my viewpoint of it. Oh, my goodness. Our light keeps going off in here.
Yeah, you can't see it, but Jimmy and I are literally in the dark giving this webinar. So if we're a little slow to advance a slide, it's because we can't see the buttons on the computer right now. So one of the things that's been instrumental in our TAB CJ program is that one of the questions that's always asked is, what about your faculty buy-in in all of this? And to be completely honest, we have run this as a skunkworks project outside of the traditional CJ program. Again, they wanted to run the program just replicating what they already do, which was not going to work. They wanted the students to be in cohorts. They wanted them to go through synchronously, and that was not aligned with what competency-based education is. And so we have relied very heavily on an advisory board with professionals in the field, and you can see them pictured here. We meet twice a year, and it is with their guidance that we create the courses. They are the instructors in the courses. They're actually involved in our assessment program as well. So last advisory board, we brought some of the students' final projects, and as future employers, we had them sit down with the AAC&U value rubric, which is an instrument that's used only with academics. In this case, we gave an academic rubric to future employers and had them evaluate the student's final project, which was what, a mock press release on some law enforcement incident. And we had employers like acting as academics to give an industry validation to the quality of our graduates that are going to be employed or going to be promoted in their organization. So it was really kind of a hoot to see that bridging of practice and theory coming together in our advisory board meetings.
Can I plug one thing in there?
Yeah, go for it.
We gave them a sample of 6, I believe, was it? 6 presentations, and the presentations were just a mock press release, as VR said. But the interesting thing to me was we had the 6 that were presented were 1 university police officer in North Texas, 1 city police officer in North Central Texas. We had a Harris County presentation. So, I mean, not only was the demographics different for the population in which they serve, but the size of the population and the history and experience that each one of those officers brought to that presentation. And when they presented that, they had no idea that they were going to be given to the board for evaluation. So it's very interesting, and it was for me, it was exciting for me to compile that broad of a segment of our program to one advisory board meeting, and for everybody to see it from a very unique, neutral perspective. So that was a fun process.
Okay. So final tips for others that may be trying to wade in the waters of creating a competency-based program. What tips would you give for others, Jimmy?
Call VR. So the amount of knowledge and experience that she has with academics and programs, I think, is the only way that we would ever able to present it in a way that we had complete buy-in, not only from the academic side of it, but the practicing side of it as well. So we have the college supports it, the organizations, the individual departments support it, the individual officers in the program. I can't tell you how many times that they have contacted me either via text message, email, phone calls, whatever, to tell me how much this type of program means to them. So don't be afraid to reach out. Again, I know what I know. Dr. VR knows what she knows, and putting us both together really has allowed me a lot of freedom in it, but a lot of personal rewards with it as well. So I think to sum it up is, Dr. VR said this before, and I say this all the time, is, you don't know what you don't know until it becomes important. And at this point, there's no reason to go into it blind. There is knowledge out there. To have James and Carlos and Courtney and Christina and Misty and Dr. VR and myself, there's a whole host of us out there that can tell you definitely different perspectives, because we all see it from a different lens, but it's still the same flower, and it's definitely blooming.
From an administrator's perspective, if I were to give tips to others that are trying to create or replicate a competency-based program, my advice to you is to be persistent and don't take no for an answer. And so you are going to continually come up against roadblocks and barriers. Your job is to break those down. So our first roadblock with our very first advisory board meeting was the discovery that the existing criminal justice program, there were no common course objectives. There was a resistance to common course numbering systems. They refused to take transfer credits from community colleges, and we broke it down. There was an interim department head and an interim dean, and I said, we're going to use the common course numbering system. They had allowed 3 courses, we allowed 10. And that was my first, I'm not taking no for an answer. For this to work, we've got to be able to accept things from the community college. Then we tried to build a 2x2 program with the portfolio and the PLA system. Sounds like a great idea, but it didn't work because no one wanted to use it. So we had to pivot and we had to fail forward and try something else. Then we went to the TCOL credits and we were like, this is going to be awesome, but what are we going to do to make sure that the students don't grab the 30 semester hours and never enroll in our program? So we had to make sure that we were building policies and structures to support the innovations that we were created. So our TCOL program is a 30 by 30. Once the student earns 30 semester hours from us, we then grant them 30 additional hours for the TCOL. So they have to be halfway into our program before they get that 30 hours from us. They have to be invested for us to reward them for their prior credit. We were off and rolling, and we had a visit from the coordinating board, and it was news to us, but the coordinating board said, well, you know that this program was never supposed to be a 2x2. It was always supposed to be open for any student, regardless of how much college they had. And so that, again, was another pivot, like, oh, whoa, I didn't You mean we have to allow people in with no college whatsoever? We have to allow people in that need developmental math? We had not thought about that before. So we had the core already built out for our organizational leadership program, but we did not have developmental math and English. So we had to add those courses because some of our students are coming in with no college whatsoever, just 30 years of law enforcement experience and some TCOL credits, and they've got to start from the beginning. So you've got to be prepared to see the barriers that are there and to remove them by being really persistent. And I've done that by just being tenacious, by just being obnoxious, by leaning on the people I know, and then by asking for help from people I don't know, by leaning out. And the wonderful thing about competency-based is that it's early enough in its development that it is really a shared community of practice. I have not found an institution to be proprietary about what it is that they do. We certainly aren't, right? The Institute will share our secret sauce with you. I'm not going to share my curriculum crosswalk with you, but I will tell you it is possible, right? We will share our business model with you. We'll share our course descriptions with you. We'll share the contracts. Anything that you are interested in, we are more than willing to share what we did or connect you with somebody who can answer that question for you. So that's probably my 2 cents there. Which brings us to questions that people may have. And I'm thinking, Carlos, are you facilitating us on this part?
It's up to James. I have the questions available. James, you there?
Yes, sir. Go ahead and just facilitate the questions, Carlos.
Perfect. So first question from Alan. So are students taking 3 credits per 7-week term? So can you explain a little bit on the course intake per 7-week period?
Yes, let me do it. How that works is at the beginning of the 7 weeks, we sign you up for 2 classes. So depending on what your degree works dictates, we sign you up for 2 classes. Once you've completed those 2 classes, so you've completed class number 1 and class number 2, and you request it, we can add class number 3. Once you've completed class number 3, we can add class number 4. Once you've completed 4, we can add 5, so on and so forth. So we do that. Those terms are 7 weeks long, and we will add classes up to the end of the 5th week of the term. So we don't want to add a class the last 2 weeks of the term because we don't want to sign you up for a class that you don't have time to finish. Because in competency-based education, there's only 3 grades that are submitted. So we issue an A, a B, and an F. In C's and D's are not considered competent based on higher ed or you.
Yep, so we enroll students in 2 courses and that makes them eligible for financial aid.
Okay.
Correct. And just seeing the data, they seem to be accelerating, right, Jimmy? Most of them taking 3 courses usually per 7-week period.
That's the average. So we definitely have people that do a lot more than 3. As we spoke of before, we've had people complete up to 8. And I think that person probably could have completed 9 or 10. But that was in the very beginning of our program and we didn't have the classes available. But we definitely have people that complete 5, 6, 7 classes in a term. It depends on how much time you have to invest in the program and how competent you are in the material once you log into the class. So
excellent. So can you explain that ability to accelerate? Can you explain a little bit on the pre-test and post-test and how that student is able to accelerate?
Okay, so in each class, and I would say generically, they're all set up the same. So in the beginning of the class, you can sign into the class. There's a pretest that's available. If you can score 80% or higher on the pretest, you can skip the modules. You don't have to. They're all there for you. Everything is there. It's just like a traditional course. All the reading material, PowerPoints. Some classes have videos. Everything is always there for you, regardless of what your skill set is in the class. But if you scored 80% or higher on the pretest, you can skip the modules and go straight to the post-test. On the post-test, if you score 80% or higher on the post-test, there is 1 course assignment per course. So just take I'm just gonna pull one off, officer wellness. In officer wellness, the course assignment is for people to create, by the instructions in the course, for people to create a departmental policy implementing the elements of officer wellness. So with an agency that they're familiar with. I'll ask one off again. Most of the people who are in these programs are actively in a law enforcement agency. So I get on that class particularly, I get a departmental policy from the agency in which they work, and they'll implement the elements of the instructions, and that's their course project. Once that course is completed, and let's just say that is the second of their 2 courses. Once those 2 courses are completed, then I'll get an email or phone call or whatever, and say, hey, I want to take another class, and then we'll sign you up for another class. Again, working off of that degree plan that we have for you in DegreeWorks, and with Misty's help, we create for you in the beginning.
Awesome. Thanks, Jimmy. So some very good questions coming in. So from Shirley, so do you still have to assess the SLOs for the courses, or do you just focus on competencies?
Our competencies are mapped to our student learning outcomes. So while we're assessing competencies and student learning outcomes at the same time, we also have program learning outcomes that we are measuring with the advisory board.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. VR. Jimmy, does Jimmy teach traditional courses and CBE courses?
I have taught traditional courses, and when you say traditional, I'm going to say quote unquote traditional online courses since 2011. But at this point, I only teach in CBE.
Okay. All right, from Marcus, can you please give some examples of assessments you are using to determine competency, especially non-exam assessments? Who reviews the student work and determines quality?
The instructor in each of the classes evaluates the course projects, and that non-test course project is what I explained a while ago. And the example I gave was the departmental policy on officer wellness. So it depends on which topic or which class you're talking about. Would depend on what your competency-based final project is for the class. And so in some classes, there's 2 of them. So for an example, in ethics, we have 2 different course projects in that one, and it kind of views ethical issues from 2 different perspectives. So it depends on the class, but they're all basically writing assignments to evaluate your understanding of the material.
Yeah, they also tend to be applied. So in the communications class, they're doing a video in which they're actually acting as if they're the chief of police, giving a press release about a particular incident that happened in their jurisdiction.
Perfect.
So that question would depend on which class you're talking about.
Excellent. So what is the difference between what you're doing with the TCOL credits and PLA?
You don't take that one?
They would have been equivalent to one another. We found that PLA was too laborsome for the students. It was just intimidating for them to have to sort of, I mean, it's the equivalent of putting together a 10-year portfolio. And we were asking somebody who's not been in college for 20 years to document every waking hour to create a justification for why they don't need to take a class. It was too intimidating for them. So we have the PLA option, but we're not using it because TCOL does the same thing. So with our curriculum crosswalk, the basic peace officer certification has been mapped to 10 distinct lower level criminal justice courses. And we just give them course credit for having TCOL.
So from a practicing standpoint, to answer that question is, I have both. So I have created, I attended another program at a different university that required a PLA. And when you really compare the two, and the 2 is basically my TCOL transcript, if you will, is the continuing ed hours that I had throughout my career as a police officer. When you compare the 2, they're basically the same thing. It's just a state record as to which classes I completed, when and where, and the portfolio basically is the outcomes of those classes that I created, or not created, but completed throughout my career. So as VR said, when you look at them, they're basically the same thing. It's just a little bit different version of it.
Perfect. So Jimmy, here's one we were talking about earlier. Is there a reason why you focus only on policing when there are so many other areas in criminal justice to focus on?
Whoever asked that question, I love you.
That's Shirley, great partner of ours.
Oh, good. Excellent question, Shirley. You got to start somewhere. And in this program, we started with police officers. And Dr. VR and I have had this conversation multiple times, and we're hoping to be able to widen our track with that, understanding that there are so many different professions within criminal justice that would benefit from an educational process as well, whether it be communications, telecommunicators, corrections, property and evidence, records, all of those things. So hopefully in the near future, we're going to be able to create, can I call it tracks? Create tracks that would allow for that. So that is definitely in the works, and we have not missed that ship at all. So we're just trying to create it. So when we're still in that elephant gestation period from beginning to launch, but from launch to now, we're still less than a year old, and we're still trying to get there. We're still trying to fine tune what we have before we create another monster that we can work with as well. So once we get it kind of on steady ground, I hope that that's going to be one of the next progressions of this type of program.
Excellent. Thanks, Jimmy. From Robert, how did SACS view or accept the TCOL credit into the CBE program? So I guess question in terms of the mapping of TCOL and getting accepted through SACS. Maybe Dr. VR could take that one.
Yes, so we are definitely, I think I have SACS rule 10.8 tattooed on my forehead. And so I've written a pretty lengthy justification to SACS COC about how it is that we are evaluating these credits, the qualifications of those that are teaching TCOL. I'm trying to, the equivalency to making sure that the certification is college worthy and has the rigor that you would find in a college course. So that is all mapped out in a document that's probably, I don't know, 60 pages long. I tried to cover every possible question that SACS COC throws at us. And we have that written up in a justification that is warehoused in our IEIR department, so that should SACS COC ever have any question of how it is that we're doing this or why it is that we're doing this, we've got it written down and justified explicitly.
Excellent. So we have about 10 minutes and the questions keep coming in. So I'm going to feed them to you as much as we can until 3 p.m. So from Brian, very good question, Brian. How do you deal with students who do not finish a class in the 7-week term?
We rarely have that kind of problem because we built that into the design of the program to begin with. So if that's the reason we cut it off at that 5th week, so that we do allow for time for you to complete what it is that has been put onto your plate. So for the ones that haven't completed, again, there's 3 grades that are issued, A, B's, and F's. So if you don't complete the coursework, then you get the grade that you earned, and then you get the opportunity to complete the class again the next term if need be. It's rare, and I'm trying to think of a time when somebody that I mean, we've had people not complete the class, but those people are typically people that either get into it and then just don't do what they're supposed to do completely, or not because of a time restraint. Typically, I can only think of one time that, and it was in the very beginning, that we had somebody that couldn't complete it. And then, I went to my boss on that one, and we figured out, what the problems were, and moved forward with it.
The imperative is for the instructor and also our advisor to be intrusive, to make sure that these people are going to finish. We hound them. If it's week 5 and you haven't turned in an assignment, we're on you. We're emailing you. Our advisor's emailing you almost every day. Get in there and finish the class. So it's very rare for a student not to finish. And if they do, it's because they haven't met the competencies. They enroll the next term and replace the F, hopefully with an A or a B.
Perfect. So the flat rate for each session is $750 regardless of how many classes they take?
Correct, unless you're a full-time peace officer,
Then it's less.
and then it's less.
So we operate with a subscription model, right? They'll sign up for $750 for that 7 week. It doesn't matter if they take 2 or 8, it's that same $750 flat rate.
Correct, and again, unless they're the full-time peace officer, and then there's a $300 rate reduction. And the joy of that is, and I'm just add to what that question is the student has total control as to how much time they spend in the program, how much money they spend in the program, and when they graduate. So if they're motivated, have the time and have the competencies, they can easily breeze through the program in a couple of terms, depending on how many college hours they bring to the system. But the full 7 weeks is there for the 2 classes if need be.
Perfect. So since you are not using traditional courses, where are you getting your SLOs from?
Well, that depends on the class, really. So we had a couple of the classes created, and the creators of the class are the ones that had uploaded the material for that particular class.
Actually, in the beginning, I had hired another consultant, Dr. Melinda Schlager. She was an academic, and she was also with the Caruth Police Institute in Dallas. And we mapped out a curriculum map that had all of the student learning outcomes mapped to competencies, mapped to program learning outcomes. We had that in one document. And then we gave those SLOs to the course developers to create each course around. So we had a master map that intellectually had the structure for the program even before we created the courses.
Perfect. Okay, last one. On the rubric for the course projects, do students have to achieve an A or B in each performance criteria, or is it an average of all criteria on the rubric to sufficiently pass?
It's an average.
Average. Okay. All right, that's all the questions I had for you. I'm gonna pass it on back to James so we can close out. Oh, and from Shirley, just from Shirley, James, thanks for the answers help a lot. I plan to come visit and spend the day with y'all to launch in the fall. So Dr. VR, Jimmy, be waiting for that visit.
Okay.
Shirley, we can't wait to have you. And thanks, Carlos, for hosting the questions. Thank you so much to Dr. VR and to Jimmy for just an excellent presentation. Some great questions overall. Really shows how people really focused on the series. I would like to say that our next one will be on March the 18th, and we welcome you or would like to extend an invitation for you to join us on that. That's going to be given by Carlos Rivers on a return on an investment. So we're looking forward to that one on March the 18th. And so with that, we thank you for your time today, everyone. Have a great day and safe travels if you're not on your home campus. So with that, have a great one, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Seemed to go well.